Earlier this week, President Joe Biden signed an executive order that's supposed to drastically tighten the southern border and address the immigration crisis that has people right across America deeply concerned. The shutdown went into effect immediately, and officials say the border won't reopen until the number of encounters drops to 1,500 a day. Well, it's been a couple of days now, so what's changed? According to reporters on the ground, nothing at all.
No change whatsoever. It is now day number 2 of President Biden's executive order being in effect here at the southern border, and we are seeing no impact on illegal crossings whatsoever. Take a look at this. This is a group of 200 that have just crossed here in Jacumba, California.
President Joe Biden signed the executive action that temporarily shuts down asylum requests once the number of encounters at the border reaches 2,500 a day for 7 days a week. Journalist Emily Jashinsky has told Sky News the restrictions that are being put in place now just shows how severely open the borders have been over the past few years.
When you have conservative estimates putting border crossings somewhere around 4 million, about 3.9 million was a conservative estimate that one analyst forwarded today. Again, that's conservative. It could actually have been many more crossings over the course of the Biden administration. But that's a huge number. And what Biden is doing now is capping asylum claims at about 2,500 a day when people come and cross the border and try to get entry into the United States. His own Homeland Security Secretary, when he was the vice president under Barack Obama, said 1,000 crossings a day would constitute a, quote, crisis. So now capping it and acting like this limit is some sort of severe border action. I mean, it's only severe relative to how severely open the borders have been for the past several years.
It's hard to comprehend that figure, 2,500 people a day for 7 consecutive days, and then it's all of a sudden declared to be overwhelmed, and then those restrictions will actually take place. But I was watching some of the reporters actually on the ground there. Many of them say that they're sceptical that this is going to have a dramatic impact, I think was the wording around that. What's your take?
I think that's exactly right, because if you look at how this executive action includes exemptions, it's really, really interesting. For example, it exempts unaccompanied minors from making these asylum claims, or if they're exempt from the caps, they can still continue to make asylum claims. We have seen that become a loophole for a lot of cartels, actually, to get money to traffic unaccompanied minors. Their parents want them to have more opportunity in the United States, so they will pay cartels to traffic their kid up to the border. That's extremely common. The other thing is there's a broad trafficking exemption. If you look at the U.S. Code, basically almost every migrant at this point can make a claim that they should be exempt from this cap because of trafficking. Basically, if you talk to migrants, they will tell you, I have done this myself, every single one of them has paid. There may be an exception here or there, but they're all paying just to be in certain parts of Mexico before they cross the border. Everyone is trafficked. And so if you want to go and make a claim that you should be exempt from this because you were trafficked, you now can do that. There are, it can't just obviously be any person. You have to meet some criteria. But it's really hard to know how the Biden administration is actually going to interpret this executive order. And they're not typically very forthcoming about asylum claims. We really have to struggle to get numbers. The American press has to struggle to get numbers out of the Biden administration on asylum. So it's just really very hard to know.
Yeah, and it's really alarming. Obviously, immigration is such an important issue for Americans with this election coming up in November. Now Biden has made this announcement. I feel like it actually just puts the spotlight on what is happening at the southern border even greater, I suppose. Do you think that this is going to affect his chances at the polls? Do you think people actually are going to believe what he's saying, that he's making positive impact, or is it actually kind of exposing how bad the crisis really is?
I can see a world in which there are some maybe left-leaning independent voters for whom this is part of what makes them comfortable voting for Joe Biden. If he makes overtures to, people that are down the middle, independent, they might think of themselves as common sense voters, because the media honestly does a pretty bad job of covering this in America. We've seen a lot of headlines talking about Biden's, strict border crackdown and all of that. So maybe it does work with some people on the margins. Overall, though, I think that's right, because this has been going on for years now under Joe Biden. For the average American voter, the fact that he has basically presided over open borders, that we've had these images, indelible images of children, of people flooding in. There's so many communities that have been touched by crime that's been perpetrated by people who are not supposed to be in this country or who have made dubious asylum claims. That's really happened all over the United States and on Joe Biden's watch. So I actually do think that it's probably too late for him to dissuade most voters of that notion.